From Vermont Public, this is The Frequency. I'm Mitch Wertlieb. It's Saturday, March 15th, which means you're listening to a special weekend edition of the podcast featuring the Capital Recap. Budget adjustment bills normally make a few tweaks here or there to planned state spending priorities, and they don't often get a ton of attention. But Governor Phil Scott took notice this year and wasted no time pulling out his veto pen. We'll get details on what the governor objects to after this.
Thanks for listening to The Frequency, where support comes from veto, supporting business growth and innovation in the Green Mountain State. From agriculture to manufacturing, energy to food production, find solutions that turn your business dreams into reality. Visit veda.org and see how VEDA can help make it happen.
There's this spending bill that gets passed every year. It's aptly called the Budget Adjustment Bill, and it basically tweaks or adjusts what the state is planning to spend in the current year. In the past, this has frankly been a pretty boring piece of legislation. Not so nowadays. And this year, it has resulted in Governor Phil Scott's first veto of the session. Vermont Public and VT Digger's housing reporter Carly Berlin spoke with education reporter Lola Dufour about what this means for the state of play in Montpelier.
Hey, Carly.
Hey, Lola.
So my understanding is that when it comes to this spending package, Scott is arguing that he basically wants a more, shall we say, traditional budget adjustment bill. His office is framing his proposal as a bunch of accounting fixes. We're spending less money than we thought here, more money than we thought here, so let's adjust accordingly. But Democrats want to do more. Tell me where the major flashpoints are.
So this year, they really center around housing and homelessness. So first, Scott objects to what he sees as some discretionary spending in the legislature's bill, particularly around affordable housing programs. His point is basically there's so much uncertainty in Washington, let's shelve that state money for now. His other main disagreement, though, is over the motel shelter program. Scott has wanted to wind this program's pandemic-era expansion down for a long time now. Democrats have gone along somewhat less aggressively, but now we're facing this deadline on April 1st where the program's cold weather rules expire. So basically expanded eligibility during the winter months to get more unhoused people indoors. That expires on April 1st. The budget adjustment would extend it for another few months. Scott doesn't want that. The stakes here are there are nearly 600 adults and 160 kids who will lose their shelter on April 1st and more in the coming weeks afterward.
Originally, Scott just wanted to leave this April 1st deadline as is, but he proposed a last-minute quote-unquote compromise about 2 weeks ago. Lay that out for us.
So the Scott administration proposed giving municipalities grants so that cities and towns could basically take over dealing with people kicked out of the hotels this spring. Legislators panned that, did not go for it. A lobbyist for municipalities testified, that this was wildly impractical, not something to be done on the fly, and that the delivery of human services was really a state function and not a local one.
It's so interesting that a chief objection to this proposal, practicalities and timing aside, is that this is a state and not local responsibility. Because in another part of the state house, aren't Democrats also discussing reforms to the motel program that would devolve responsibility from the state back to the local level?
Yeah, exactly. There is a bill contemplated in the House right now that would basically decentralize homelessness services in the state, taking away a lot of control from the state and giving it to regional private nonprofit organizations. So power and money, importantly. There are a lot of differences here. This bill contemplates a year-long implementation period, really different than what Scott administration officials brought forward recently. But, zooming out, there are a lot of philosophical similarities here, handing control from the state to smaller regional organizations.
And not just control, right? It's also responsibility.
Right. That's exactly what I've heard from, one local provider, that this shifts accountability for this growing problem of homelessness to them. And, on the other hand, though, there is widespread agreement that the status quo is not working. And so some big shift needs to happen.
Okay, so 2 weeks ago, Democrats rejected what we can call Scott's last best offer on this bill. At the same time, Senator Randy Brock, a Franklin County Republican, he told his Democratic colleagues, okay, you're saying no to this idea. Scott's going to veto this bill. You're not going to have the votes to override him. And then what? Tell me a little bit about what you think then what could look like.
Right. I mean, Democrats don't have a supermajority anymore, so it's really not clear what leverage they have. We could end up without a budget adjustment bill at all. And the stakes of that aren't like a government shutdown, but some key programs could run out of money before the end of the fiscal year, and hundreds of people could lose their shelter. So we're going to have to see what kind of deal Democrats and Republicans can strike.
That was Report for America Corps member Carly Berlin speaking to Vermont Public's Lola Dufour. Carly covers housing and infrastructure for VT Digger and Vermont Public. You can follow us at vermontpublic.org to stay on top of all our legislative coverage and sign up for our weekly Capitol Recap newsletter to get all the news out of Montpelier from our team of State House reporters. Thanks for listening to The Frequency today. Our executive producer is Kevin Trevelyan, and our music is by Blue Dot Sessions. I'm Mitch Wertlieb. Talk to you Monday.
Each morning, it's a new opportunity, a chance to start fresh. Up First from NPR makes each morning an opportunity to learn and to understand. Choose to join the world every morning with Up First, a podcast that hands you everything going on across the globe and down the street, all in 15 minutes or less. Start your day informed and anew with Up First by subscribing wherever you get your podcasts.